Hello, welcome to Introduction to Philosophy, Phil 101, Section 7, CRN 42159, Fall 2014. I'm Grant. I'm going to be your instructor for this semester, and this will basically be the format of the instruction for this course. I have an email address. The purpose of today's video is to go over the syllabus with you. My email address is yoakum@oakland.edu. I have on-campus office hours on Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 1:20 till 2:20 p.m. You can find me in O'Dowd Hall, room 319. It's a small room that I share with, I think, 5 other people at this point. But this course meets virtually, so you will get YouTube video lectures on the material and a variety of other resources which you can access through Moodle. I've got a note here right on page 1 of the syllabus. Contact me via email or in person in office hours with any and all course difficulties. And that's the first bit of advice that I'd like to give you with this course. Don't get behind. If you get behind this course, you'll see it's 7 sections and quizzes for each of them. You'll have about 2 weeks with each of the sections. And if you get behind, it's going to be a mad scramble to catch up, right? So nonetheless, that is what we're going to be doing this semester. Now, before I get into the syllabus, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. This starts year 10 of my teaching in the States, and at the end of this semester, it will be the end of year 10 for my career at Oakland. So, I've been at this a little while. I've been teaching these online courses since about 2006 or 7, I forget, but nonetheless, quite some time. They've been through several formulations. I've adjusted them as needed. And what we're taking a look at is a structure for this class that is adjusted again just to give you quicker feedback. Right? It's in terms of the feedback I'm getting for these courses. Students would generally like quicker feedback on their assignments, a better idea of where they're standing in the course, and that is the story for why we have these section quizzes, which will be quick to grade, quick to give you feedback, and we'll test each of the sections that we study in this course. So, my name is Grant Yoakum. I did my undergraduate degrees in philosophy and English at the University of Windsor. I did my master's in philosophy at Brock University. And I'm currently working on a PhD through Brock University in interdisciplinary humanities, with still a focus on philosophy, but also I'm looking at a form of urban social theory. Some of the background to my research we actually did in the readings for this course. I've had a few emails already asking me about the books for the course, and this is completely to be expected. You see a list of 6 books for a course. You think that they can't possibly be right. But if you look at the prices for each of these books, what you have are translations of the primary texts rather than summaries written by somebody else of these texts, and many of them are Hackett translations, like, for example, our 5 Dialogues book. And these things are as cheap as I can make them for you. So there are a pile of books here. All right? The first is Plato's 5 Dialogues. Don't worry, we're not going through all of any of these books. There are 5 dialogues. We're taking a look at 2 of them, the Apology and the Credo from this first book. Then we move on to Plato's Phaedrus. I have 49 pages of this that I want to take a look at. After that, we move on to Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, and we're just taking a look at books 1 and 2 and a section of 3. So don't worry, you don't have to read all of this. You have to read about this. So then we move to Thomas Hobbes. They're short chapters. I'm taking you through chapters 6 through 19 of Thomas Hobbes' Leviathan. Then we have one very short section of the Essential Kierkegaard, which I might be able to find online for you, but I've been using this book for the dog's age now, so you should be able to find used copies of it, and it's towards the end of the semester when we get to it as well. So I can see plenty of time to source a copy of this book through used channels, maybe a little bit cheaper as well. And then finally, probably the most published volume of Nietzsche that's out there. And I'm looking at the US price on the back of my old edition, and it's $14.95. If you go to any used bookstore, they'll probably have 6 or 8 copies of the Portable Nietzsche. And again, we're not reading the whole thing, we're just reading a section of Twilight of the Idols, which starts on page 463 with the preface. But it's a very small amount of that. Now, the reason why I do books this way rather than any one of the sort of anthology kind of books that the publishers send me and try to get me to get you to buy. Um, this one would be about $130, and what you get are some readings, but largely interpretations of the primary material by people other than the people who wrote the primary material. What I like to do is, if I want to know about Nietzsche, I ask Nietzsche. Right? I go to the primary material rather than a secondary analysis, or at least I go first primary material. So that should be our starting point. And like I say, these should be all fairly cheap for you and super available through a number of channels. But I did place orders with the Oakland University Bookstore, and those are your books. So, the first portion of the syllabus here is just a lot of boilerplate, right? Course catalog description, gen ed learning outcomes and objectives, cross-cutting capacities, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the course catalog description is what I'm required to design this course to do. It reads, study the main types and problems of Western philosophy. Well, we're doing that. Readings are chosen to illustrate the development of Western thought from the ancient Greeks to present. Right? So I've done that. We're starting with a brief treatment of pre-Socratic philosophy. You'll find sort of a short reading of selected fragments on Moodle for you as well. It's same places you'll find the syllabus. And then we move to Socrates, then Plato, then Aristotle, then with Hobbes we move into the modern period of philosophy. And then with Kierkegaard and Nietzsche, we get up to about the past 130 years. So, to present, in philosophy, we mean that sort of loosely. Offered every semester, and it satisfies the general education requirement for the Western civilization knowledge exploration area, which is, I assume, why most of you are here and taking this course. Hopefully you have an interest or will develop an interest in philosophy as well as we go through the various arguments and theories that we are going to be studying throughout the semester. Following this video, you will find also a brief treatment of pre-Socratic philosophy posted to Moodle as well. I'm going to ask you to screen those videos for this week as well. And you will find on page 3 of the syllabus a tentative reading schedule with the dates of your various quizzes, the date of your writing assignment, and some notes about forum discussions as well. So this will be the schedule that I will try to keep us as up to date with as possible throughout the semester. That said, I know that life happens. It happens to you. And you have illnesses, you have other deadlines, you have unexpecteds, et cetera, et cetera. So do I. So that's why the word tentative is used there, just to give us a little bit of possible wiggle room as the semester unfolds. So this is your course. There are 3 kinds of things that you'll be graded on. Like I say, section quizzes. There will be one roughly every 2 weeks. Your first one is going to be due September 7th, believe it or not. But this will be a short quiz on very short readings and on a video. These quizzes are designed to be fairly straightforward. There will be 10 points worth of questions for each of these sections. And generally these questions, for a point, you need to put a sentence in. Right? So I'm not asking for a lot with these quizzes. They should be quick to do, though proofread them before you submit them. It's a courtesy to whoever's reading your work. They should be quick to do and very quick for me to grade. When I grade these, I'll post very brief comments in them, but also an answer key to Moodle. So you can refer to that. If you still have any questions about how you were assessed on these quizzes, like I say, it's pretty straightforward, but nonetheless, if you have any questions, please contact me. The best way to do that is office hours, though email is also possible as well. So that's the first thing that you're going to be graded on. The second thing that is of concern for you is the final writing project, which is 15% of your final grade. You see what I'm doing here is each of these quizzes are out of 10 for a total of 70% of the course. Your final writing project will get a mark out of 15, it's worth 15%, and the discussion forums or discussion boards will be worth 15% as well. So it should be as simple math as possible to see exactly where you stand in this course. Now, for the final writing project, it's a reflection paper. Throughout the course, I will be formulating a list of 3 general overview questions. What I've done in the past with this writing assignment is claim that what you have to do in this reflection paper, which is 750 to 1,000 words, so that's 3 or 4 pages, is address at least 2 of the theorists that we've studied in this course, bound by one of the 3 questions that towards the end of the course I'll formulate and present to you with another video like this one explaining what I'm looking for. I also have sort of an organizational structure for philosophy papers. I'm well aware that this is going to be the first philosophy class that a number of you are taking, so I've spent a number of years actually coming up with resources for you to succeed in these kinds of courses, to organize your thoughts and to present a cogent position through argument through your written work. If you look at one of the Gen Ed requirements here, to develop students' facility and clear presentation of arguments in writing, both the forums and the final written assignment will be doing that. The quizzes themselves are sort of an exercise in being very concise. So 10% for each quiz, 7 of them, so that adds to 70. Final writing project, 15%, and discussion board participation worth 15% as well. Now, the discussion forums, this is it's sort of the challenge with an online learning environment, because hopefully what happens in these courses, and this tries to happen in my on-campus courses as well, is that it generates a dialogue between students about this material. Right? This is the beautiful thing about taking this in a course. Compared to your tuition, these books are super cheap. So what you're getting in addition to is, yes, me, I've been through this material a number of times. You'll find I can quote it from memory more times than not, because this is sort of the beaten path for me. But in addition to that, you've got in these online courses 20 or 25 other students who are concerned with making sense of the same material that you are engaged with. So the discussion forums, there will be one for each section of the class, so you'll also find that the first of your discussion forum topics is posted along with this video, along with the syllabus, along with the first batch of video material as well. What you'll find is that each of the sections has a specific directed question, and that's to get the ball rolling in sort of a discussion amongst you about the material. Now, in these discussions, you're going to be asked to sort of assess an argument by a theorist, respond to each other's criticisms, and in general, just workshop the ideas for each of these sections. So ideally, right, if Hegel is right and philosophy is of necessity dialectical, right, this will be the place in which you will be able to engage in these kinds of dialogues. But just a quick note about the kinds of things that we'll be discussing in this class. Uh, you know how there are those three things that you don't talk about in public or in polite conversation: politics, religion, and they say money, but we can call it value. Philosophy, its job is to talk about those uncomfortable topics. So I fully expect throughout the semester you will be engaged in fairly lively debates about this material. Right? So a word of caution about these discussion forums, even though these are going to be lively debates about, our most uncomfortable topics, and the reason these topics are so uncomfortable is because they mean so much to human beings. Right? Well, the idea is to keep it classy, keep it professional, and separate your emotions from the arguments that are being made. Right? So this is an exercise in not taking other people's arguments personally. So I have on page 2 of the syllabus, along with a number of other policies, which I said I'd do at the end, but just so long as we're at this, the discussion board for this course is intended and should only be used for discussion of the course material. It's not Facebook, it's not a blog, it's not Twitter. Basically, what we are doing is we have specific lines of question and lines of thought presented by students, which are dialogues about the course material. It's an instructional resource. So I note here procedural questions and general comments about the course, like when are we getting our grades back, how did everybody else do on that exam, should find another home other than the discussion forums, right? If you have a question about how you're assessed or when you're getting your grades back or anything along those lines, email me, right? That's what I'm here for, right? So it should be a topical kind of resource, right? It's in addition to that, it's I note and italicize here. That's emphasis. Right? There will be a zero tolerance policy for derogatory comments or personal attacks on this forum. Posts of this nature will be removed and grade deductions will ensue. This is an instructional resource only and should not be treated like a personal form of communication or a more general forum. That's an anachronism. I use the word blog there, which is funny. But nonetheless, the idea is to keep it classy and keep it topical, right? It's keep in mind why the forums are there. So, like I said, there will be a topic posted for each and every one of the 7 sections in this course, and you're expected to engage with all of them with a bare minimum of 1 post each. All right. Now, keeping in mind the nature of minimums, all right, if you do the minimum, you can expect your grade to be minimum, right? Again, I'm grading these based on what these forms are intended to be, which is a lively sort of realm of debate amongst students about this material. Right? So posts like "I agree" or "This is stupid" without additional comments will be insufficient to garner a passing grade. And basically, when I'm grading these, I ask myself a number of questions. One, have you posted at least once for each topic? Like I say, that's your minimum. Minimums garner minimal results. Think of it like betting at the casino. If you bet $5 You might win big, but if you bet $50, you win bigger, right? Or if you invest effort in a project, generally your return for that effort increases based on how much effort you invest. Right? That's more accurate than gambling. This isn't a gamble. You're using your faculty of reason to engage with arguments and enter into debates. Right? So this isn't chance. Right? This is the development of skill. And so, and that skill is developed through the discharge of effort on your part. Right? So have you posted at least once? Right? So at least once, that's a necessary condition for the possibility of a passing grade. Right? Two, are the posts substantial? That is, do the posts offered show engagement with the material? Right? So are they from way out in left field? Are you free associating, or are they related to a clear understanding and attempt to engage with the topic at hand? Right? And three, are the posts timely? And this is the interesting thing about the forums. Or did the student wait until the last minute to do all of them? Now, this, I say that last is sort of interesting because to give you access to this lively discussion for the entire semester, I leave each of these topics open all semester. So conceivably, on the last day of class, right, just before your final writing project is due on December 12th, you could sit down and post to each and every one of these topics. That might be a good way to reflect back on what we've studied throughout the course, and there might be some great value to that as well. But if you ignore these whole semester, you're not contributing to an ongoing lively discussion and debate amongst all of the students, right? So I suppose your grade is going to come with not only engaging with this thing, but understanding and trying to further the objective of this shared sort of educational resource, right? And I've weighted it fairly heavily at 15%, just to show you I treat it as something that's important. Now, this is also your resource, right? This is also your workspace for coming up with an understanding of this material. You'll see me on there commenting every now and again, but for the most part, I leave it to you until I see something derogatory or until I see something maybe off topic or that is a misunderstanding that's shared among many of you or something along those lines. That's usually when I step in. I do read them all. Right? I get emails when each of you post. Right? So as I'm reading through my email, I'm reading through your posts and your responses to one another and actually keeping an eye on the lively debate. Right? But for the most part, it's your resource. Right? So I leave that to you. And so that's what you're going to be graded on. 7 quizzes, 7 discussion topic forum debate thingies, and a final writing project, which is a reflection on what you've taken from this course, is centered around one of the major themes for the course, which will formulate and it will reflect your forum discussions as well. So that will be the course. Just while we're talking about grades, if we flip to the back page of your syllabus, what you are going to find is a continuation of the grading scheme. I kept it very brief at the beginning of the syllabus just to give you a rough outline of how you're going to be assessed. What you find on the last page of the syllabus here is your letter grade to percentage point conversion chart. Look at it carefully because it's probably different than what you, like to your benefit, mind you, but different than what you're used to from an American institution. This is the wacky thing about me. I'm actually sitting in Canada right now and teaching for Oakland University. It's a funny little NAFTA thing that goes on, and like I said, I've been commuting for a good decade over to various colleges and universities in Michigan, as well as Canadian institutions that I teach at as well. Redundancy. Anyhow, this basically is what I grew up with. Right? So when I'm looking at your writing assignment or forum posts or your quizzes, what I'm saying to myself is, well, this is what, a B plus B? What I mean by a B plus or B numerically is right on this chart, right up front, so that there are no surprises. And quickly, I'm going to show you how this makes no difference to you whatsoever. Use this chart to figure out what letter grade you have, and then what I do at the end of the course, when it's time to submit the grades to the office of the registrar, is I take that letter grade and transfer it into the 4-point grading system. Right? So A plus is a 4.0, and A is a 3.8 or a 3.9, and A minus is a 3.6 or 3.7, just like you're used to. But the numbers that you're going to see flying at you are, let's say it's an A minus, so you're somewhere between 3.6 and 3.7. What that means by this chart is that that's somewhere between 80 and 85.9%. Right? And that's what an A minus translates into. All the Office of the Registrar ever sees from me is a 4-point grade that I submit for you, both in terms of midterm evals and in terms of your final grades, which are due December 14th or something crazy like that. So that's the course. But what I have here are a few policies, right? And this is my least favorite part of discussing this course right at the beginning, because these policies, I have to say, are all here because I've had problems in the past. You don't get a policy without a reason for having a policy. This is philosophy 101, right? Reasons are what persuade us to act, right? Not feelings, not opinions, not bare beliefs, right? Reasons are what even cause us to have beliefs by some arguments that we're going to study, right? So I don't do anything here without a reason, and I think these reasons are sufficient. The first policy I'll come across, you come across on the syllabus under general policies, starting on page 1, is plagiarism. Yeah, I'm a bit of a tough cop on plagiarism. And I have like a wacky intuition and ability to detect plagiarism like you wouldn't believe. So don't do it, and we won't have a problem. But this is the point in the welcome lecture where I have to wave my finger at you, and I know it's not fair because we haven't even met. You haven't submitted anything to me. You haven't done anything yet, right? And I already, by having a policy, am in a position where anyhow, I'll just read this and say, don't do it. If you don't know what it is, contact me, and I give you some resources here as well. Don't do it, and we won't have any sorts of problems. That said, I've had scores of these cases go full boat academic here. It's not good. Plagiarism is the carnal academic sin. Right? We're not messing around here. Basically, I'll put it this way. People in my position, all we have to really trade on, this is our asset, our ideas. Plagiarism is theft of those ideas, and we have to react wildly in relation to that. One, because it's theft, and two, it's theft of our most valuable resource. So, plagiarizing the work of others. Now, I should say right from the beginning, this all comes from the Dean of Students, the student handbook, and I have a footnote which takes you to the student handbook, which is already contractually what you're obligated in terms of policies to follow. All right. So the first part of this just comes straight from the Dean of Students. Plagiarizing the work of others. Plagiarism is using someone else's work or ideas without giving that person credit. By doing this, a student is, in effect, claiming credit for someone else's thinking. Whether a student has read or heard the information used, the student must document the source of that information. When dealing with written sources, a clear distinction should be made between quotations, which reproduce the information from the source word to word within quotation marks, and paraphrases, which digest the source of information and produce it in the student's own words. Both direct quotations and paraphrases must be documented. Even if a student rephrases, condenses, or selects from another person's work, the ideas are still that other person's, and failure to give credit constitutes misrepresentation of the student's actual work and plagiarism of another's ideas. Buying a paper or using information from the, get this, World Wide Web or Internet without attribution and handing it in as one's own is plagiarism. End quote from Student Handbook. All right? So that's what plagiarism is. All right? And just for a second, put yourself in my position. My job in this capacity is to determine how much of the material at hand you have managed to decipher. All right? Your written work is the only evidence I have that leads me to give you some sort of grade, which obligates both you and me through the contract with the university and through our engagement with the Office of the Registrar. So the only evidence I have for how well you understand this work comes from your written work. If your written work is not your written work, I have no evidence to base any sort of grade assessment on. But wait, I do have a policy. There will be a zero tolerance policy on plagiarism in this course. Any student suspected of this form of theft will be automatically passed on to an academic review board, that board through the Dean of Students Office. And that's just what my contract says. Right? As soon as, this is the interesting thing, right? I was just saying about how I assess your progress in this course. Oakland University sees me as a very good judge of whether or not you have understood this material as evidenced by your written work. The interesting thing, they don't consider me a good judge of authorship. If there's any question as to who actually authored this work, it's not me that makes that determination. It's the Dean of Students Office and specialists at the Dean of Students Office that make that determination. So as soon as questionable authorship shows up, it's out of my hands. All right? There's a mechanism in my contract that takes the matter out of my hands entirely. I show up to the meeting at the Dean of Students Office. So, any student suspected of this form of theft will go on to the Academic Review Board. Expulsion from the university is one of the sanctions that is possible for this. More likely suspension, more likely other forms of sanction, like you have to submit everything from now on to the Academic Writing Center, et cetera, probation for the duration of your university career, et cetera, et cetera. These are all sanctions that are up their sleeve for plagiarism. And then finally, this is me, I'm back using my voice again. Course policy for this offense will be automatic failure of the course. So if you plagiarize one assignment, right, if you plagiarize something on like one little 10% quiz, or your final writing assignment, which is worth 15% of your course, that one act wipes out the entire semester. Plus you're in trouble with the Dean of Students Office. I'm not trying to be a jerk here. Right? That's not why this policy is so strong. This policy is here just to help you do the cost benefit analysis and form an action that gives you the best potential for success. Right? My position is I want you to learn this material. Your position is ideally that you're in university because you want to learn. The act of plagiarism bypasses all of that. You don't have to learn, you don't have to understand. I don't get to grade your work because you presented somebody else's work instead, right? Et cetera, right? So here, this just tilts the scale in favor of do it yourself. That makes sense, right? Now, you see why I hate this portion of the welcome lecture. It's not very welcoming, is it? Right? You haven't done anything yet. Right? So this is finger wagging at like some ghost of semesters past, is what it is. The second footnote in the plagiarism policy, I get a kick out of having footnotes in that. It is a note. If you're unsure of how to properly cite your work or what's required from you with regard to this important academic integrity issue, please avail yourself to the CiteWrite program through the Academic Writing Center, and I give you a web address. I've actually taken this. It's really good. It teaches you under what conditions you are to cite. It teaches you how to cite, that sort of thing. The funny thing about the university is this is precisely what we should be teaching people how to do, how to go and research. These are research institutions. When I write a paper, I've got piles of them over there. When I write a paper, the last academic paper that I wrote for something about 20 pages long had 83 footnotes. 83 footnotes. I'm not saying don't use material that's external from the course. You'll see me using material that's external from the course. Every time I say, hey, let's look at this book, I'm using material that's external from the course. Well, what Nietzsche says is blah, blah, blah. I don't pretend I said it. I say Nietzsche said it. Right? This is what the university is good at doing. Right? It's just this policy is here to prevent you from doing it. That was the plagiarism policy. That's as mean as I'm going to be all semester. Okay. All right, so more policies. Right? I've got one for missed exams. Life happens. I get that. So in the unfortunate event that you miss an assignment date due to serious illness or death in the family or the sky falls or something along those lines, right? You must notify me either via email or by telephone message with the departmental office. Call the school. They have my phone number in my office, so I'm there in those set office hours from 1:20 till 2:20 on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Let me know that you're missing this assignment and you're interested in making it up, either and preferably before the due date or deadline in question, or within 12 hours. You miss it. Most of your due dates are at 5 on Sunday. So by 5 o'clock, if you're missing the due date, just let me know. That's all I'm asking. And then I'll work with you. I'm real forthcoming with extensions. I'm the first to understand that, sometimes the sky just falls and deadlines could go by the wayside. We can't have too much of that because it's a logistical. I'm teaching 4 of these courses with nearly 170 students this semester. It's just, I don't know how I'm going to keep up with it all. But nonetheless, right, I'm willing to work with you, right, and we'll schedule some sort of a makeup if the sky falls. Email. Well, we're on the topic of me having close to 170 students this semester. Students, it's just the way of the world that students email you whenever anything occurs to you, right? I put a lot of work into the syllabus, right? I'm on to the 4th page now, giving you all of the information on this syllabus. If there are questions, I post to the Moodle site, and usually your question is answered that way and that sort of thing. But you guys are an online class, right? It's your primary form of communication with me is email. You guys have priority. But that said, sometimes I get behind because I can only type so fast, and with the volume of these things coming in, I don't know how I can both sleep, teach my on-campus courses, do my commute, and answer all of the emails that comes in. So it should be noted, this is the policy on email. That email is not a form of instant communication. Right? Sometimes I email the guy across the hall from me, and it takes 10 hours for it to show up in his inbox. Hey, I just emailed you. Oh, yeah, I didn't get anything. Well, it'll be there. It's in the cloud somewhere. All right. So it's not as instant as we think it is. All right. I will do my best to answer emails in as timely a fashion as possible, but due to the high volume of emails associated with these courses, I do fall behind from time to time. If you have questions about the course, the best and most direct manner for these questions to arise is in person, in office hours, or in class. Of course, you're a virtual class, so office hours, that's it. Like if you can make it to the school, that's the best way. And we'll be even able to have a back and forth that doesn't take 4 days to happen. Right? If you're absolutely unable to come to my office hours, I may be able to, given enough notice, schedule a Skype meeting with you. I'd be happy to meet with you via Skype to discuss any sort of questions or concerns that you've got with the course as well. But understand that you're busy, you're taking this course because you're busy and need a flexible schedule. I'm busy and I'm teaching this course because I need a flexible schedule. So we're going to do our best. My office hours are there, email is there, Skype is an option with an appointment, et cetera, et cetera. Right? And then finally, if I have a number of similar questions regarding course material or procedure, I frequently send a mass email to everyone addressing that question. Sometimes, if there are a few of them, I record another one of these videos and everybody gets the information because really, if there are 5 questions that are all the same, that means most of you have the same question. I'm not ignoring you, I'm just trying to be as efficient as possible. Hopefully that makes sense. And then one last little interesting tidbit about Oakland University and email. Oakland University requires that all course correspondence should occur through an OU email account. So here's what my contract stipulates. Again, it's weird contracts, but if you email me from Gmail or Comcast.net or something along those lines, some funky email that's not Joe Schmo at oakland.edu, I'm not supposed to respond to it. Oakland University wants an Oakland University record of all Oakland University correspondence pertaining to these courses. Right? So activate that OU email and email me that way, and I'll be able to respond to you. This is, again, policies all here so that the course just moves along smoothly. Right? And discussion forum policy, I already went over that. It's in the evaluation portion. I give you descriptions of what each of the sections, I already kind of went over that. You'll see the big bold words, no late assignments will be accepted. The important caveat is the missed assignment policy. All right, negotiate it with me. All right, if you're going to be late, that's for the most part and mostly fine, but it requires that we have a discussion about that, and I'll work with you. That makes sense? Okay, well, how long have I been yammering? 44 minutes. Okay, well, I'll just conclude with some fun stuff, a little bit of philosophy. Okay. So I've got a big pile of books here. We're going to read them. You're going to know what's going on with all of these theorists by the end of the course, hopefully. And we are going to start at the birth point of Western philosophy with the pre-Socratics, which were literally before Socrates. Right? Socrates was a big enough deal, and he's the philosopher that we know substantially enough to actually say, okay, now philosophy has started in earnest. Right? But from this guy Thales sort of on, there were these lively discussions that didn't involve the written word necessarily. Right? So, nonetheless, we will start with some of the fragments that we have of that pre-written, more verbal tradition in philosophy. And we know a little bit about some of the major positions. So we'll be taking a look at Thales, Heraclitus, Parmenides, a bit of Protagoras. He's an interesting relativist or sophist, right? And that all just really gets the ball rolling for Western philosophy. And this is like 600 years before the Common Era, right? So we're starting a really, really long time ago, right? All of that there is just to get the ball rolling so that we can read, confusingly, Socrates in Plato's Five Dialogues. You might say to yourself, okay, you're already confusing me. Well, here's the thing about Socrates. He was part of that verbal tradition as well. He didn't sit down like most of my colleagues and I with the office door closed, taken away at our computers, right, not talking to one another, producing a written project, right, that we then disseminate to like maybe the 5 people that actually read those journals that they take back their critical responses and stuff like that. Socrates argued at the mall, basically, in the agora, in the marketplace, by the money changers' tables, and basically where the people were. Right? So right from its inception, philosophy was one, a public exercise, and two, an urban exercise. I mean, Athens was a trade center. It's as metropolitan, as cosmopolitan a city as you could have in ancient Greece, right? So basically, if it was available anywhere in the ancient world, it came through the port at Athens, right? There was also, like, the Athenians were wildly wealthy. That'll come up a few times in the courses and that sort of thing. So what we are going to take a look at is, yes, written down by a guy named Plato, who was a young sort of it's hard to even call him a student of Socrates. He just really followed Socrates around, and his works are sort of a monument to this very wise, critical, intellectual, and it turns out martyr. Right? From the earliest point in democracy in the Western world. Right? So the dialogues that we're going to be taking a look at, the apology, it's going to be fun. It's not apologetic at all. Basically, this is Socrates' defense of himself in a trial against charges that amounted to treason. Right? And in this particular dialogue, what we get is probably the first really succinct treatment of the notion of justice within a democracy and what's required both of the system itself and of those citizens engaged in the democracy. Right? Followed up by the Credo, right, which introduces 2 of the still most important concepts in political philosophy, that of tacit consent and that of, why am I blanking on this? And the social contract. There it goes. Anyhow, so those are the 2 dialogues that will introduce you to crazy old Socrates walking around barefoot in Athens. I'll supplement those with a couple of videos, one by the guy by the name of Rick Roderick from Duke, and another British fellow by the name of Alain de Botton, who both have interesting introductory treatments of Socrates. Interesting guys. So that's what we move on to next. Then after that, we move to Plato. Now, annoyingly, right, what we get from Plato in the early dialogues, by some accounts, there's debate about this. If there's debate about it, I'll bring it up. But nonetheless, there's debate about this. It was the Socrates we get the Apology and the Crito, really Socrates. Well, we know there was a guy named Socrates. He had a court defense, and he spent some time in prison, and then he was executed. We know that, right? This is Plato giving an account of Socrates' position. Unlike the later dialogue, the Phaedrus, which is much later in Plato's career, where Plato introduces a character named Socrates who gets into debates and that sort of thing. Ever heard of Platonic love? Well, that's the subject of the first 49 pages of this dialogue. It opens with Socrates bumping into a guy by the name of Phaedrus. All right, they go for a walk outside the city, and Phaedrus relates an argument made by an orator by the name of Lysias, who's actually making an argument, get this, that it's better to just have casual sort of physical relationships than to be in love. And this love dialogue, it's actually a dialogue about rhetoric, but we're looking at the love portion of it, right? This love dialogue, right, is meant to introduce you to an interesting idea of Platonic love, the philosopher's kind of love, the highest kind of love, the redemptive sort of love, because if you're like me, you've done really, really stupid things in the name of love in your life. I'm yammering too much. So we're gonna talk about love. Not what you were expecting, I'm sure. Then we move to Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, books 1, 2, and part of 3. And in the Nicomachean Ethics, he's talking about happiness. All right? So democracy and justice, love, and happiness. That's a smiley way to start a course, isn't it? So what we get from the Nicomachean Ethics is, by some accounts, the first self-help book that you'll come across in sort of the Western world. It's got sort of a bootstraps method, right? It's also a bit of a child rearing manual because Aristotle sees the development of character in children to be one of the most important things that leads to a political condition that brings about happiness or a condition of flourishing. Right? So, starting from a very young age to develop somebody's character, right? This becomes very important. He talks a lot about virtue, right? Et cetera, right? So it's an all-around great book that I'm looking forward to introducing you to. And then what are we doing? Hobbes' Leviathan. Right? This is the point at which the course turns into something a little bit more dark. Right? He describes the natural condition of mankind as one of a continual war, as is of everyone against everyone. Right? He defines human beings as naturally power-hungry, desirous kind of creatures. Right? And he describes a political institution that's the only thing that can ultimately protect us from each other, but more or less from ourselves. Right? So this is one of the seminal arguments in the history of Western philosophy. Lots is still published on it. Then our last two theorists, Soren Kierkegaard. He has more pseudonyms than I have pairs of socks. He dons a new one every time he explores a new idea. And Sickness Unto Death is as exciting and pleasant and happy as you can expect it to be. 351. He introduces the notion. It's like I hate to ruin the end of the class for you, but despair is the sickness unto death. So it's a short dialogue about despair. It's either that or anxiety, right? So I chose the despair one this semester. And then Twilight of the Idols by a guy by the name of Friedrich Nietzsche, who's most famous for having claimed that God is dead. And also, interestingly, we'll be taking a look at Twilight of the Idols, or How One Philosophizes with a Hammer. And what is it, Maxim number 8, right from the beginning? Yep, right on 467 of your book. Ever heard that saying, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger? Out of Life School of War, what does not destroy me makes me stronger. That's Maxim number 8, Twilight of the Idols. So if that's ever a question on Jeopardy, this course has your back, right? But nonetheless, right, that's Friedrich Nietzsche. Went insane, probably had syphilis from the one time he had sex in his life with a prostitute, descended into madness. Shortly after writing Twilight of the Idols, died in 1900. That brings us into at least the last century, right? So, hopefully, this is going to be an interesting semester for you, and I look forward to getting to know each and every one of you through your writing. All right. Take care.